Last week, I uploaded a video analyzing the morality of Toriel's actions in relation to the ending of Deltarune Chapter 4. I was, and am, still very proud of that video, and I plan for my next video to be an analysis on my favorite character in the game, Noelle. However, I received an interesting comment that day of uploading that I've seen to be a popular topic for people to discuss. The comment reads as follows: "Want to know my opinion? The game, and mostly its fanbase, has been telling me constantly that I am not Kris, so why should I care about Kris's family? I'd say this is a light punishment for what Kris has been doing." Now, there is an entire comment thread of some people responding to the point, and originally I was going to respond as well. However, as I thought about it more, the more I realized I have a lot to say on this topic. Sure, I could respond in a snarky one-liner, but that doesn't really benefit anyone. So instead, I decided to make a video dedicated to the topic to share some of my own thoughts. And spoiler alert, I don't agree with the original comment, but I'd much rather explain that in a much more streamlined way rather than a short YouTube comment. I don't want to waste too much time with introductions, but if you enjoy what you're watching, a subscription would really be appreciated. So, I have 2 points I want to make in this video. Number 1, Kris is their own unique person separate from the soul. They have their own history, thoughts, feelings, and can act on their own. With some admittedly unclear exceptions, the soul is, for all intents and purposes, a representation of the player. It is you. It is a way to represent the person controlling the game and, an extension, Kris. And number 2, despite the fact that you are not Kris, their family, their friends, the town they live in, and the events that happen are still important. The game is not a simple go from A to B quest with a single goal. It is complex. The problems are complex. So let's dig into both of these talking points, starting with the first one. Kris is their own person. This actually has been a much larger topic at hand that I've seen as far back as when Undertale first released, and with that game, I feel like it was a lot more understandable, though still incorrect, to label Frisk as a self-insert. But with Deltarune, I can't really understand it at all. The end of Chapter 1, where Kris rips out the soul, makes the distinction pretty clear, especially because we can still move the soul in the birdcage, but Kris moves completely on their own. This can actually be argued for all the chapter's endings. In every single one, Kris takes control to achieve whatever purpose they're trying to achieve. In addition to that, if Kris doesn't want you knowing or doing something, they just won't let you. Sure, you wanted to turn the knob in the back church door, but it was never specified that you wanted to open it. If you wanted to think about the night, you can, but wow, Jockington and Timmy are suddenly at the forefront of your mind without your own input. I wonder who caused that. That isn't even mentioning all the times you can be a real dick to Rousey. And if you press a lot of those options, Kris will do something in response that change the connotation of your choice, or in some cases, just outright prevent it. This is actually a pretty clear indication to get an idea of what Kris's opinions are on some of the actions you choose to do, whether or not they decide to do something with full effort or barely even make an attempt. I think it's a really cool way to characterize somebody, especially to make up for Kris not having any scene dialogue. We still can get an idea of their personality just from their own interpretations of our commands. And I think that's kinda awesome. And what about all the history of Kris's life? The game has an abundance of moments where their childhood is brought up, especially in Chapter 3. I don't think a character that was solely intended to be a self-insert would have so much put behind the backstory for said self-insert. Doesn't that kinda defeat the point of a self-insert? To develop your own character as you play, to invest yourself by making this character you, or whatever you want it to be. Actually, I would go as far as to argue that Kris is the deconstruction of what it means to be a silent protagonist, and how it doesn't automatically mean self-insert. Just because they never speak, go by they, them, and you can make decisions for them doesn't mean they're you. Unlike most self-inserts, they have a past, established relationships before you arrived, a distinct personality, motivations that conflict with ours, secrets, thoughts, and feelings. I think a good comparison for Kris is Sunny from Omori. I know, obvious point of reference coming from me, but seriously, the only difference between Sunny and Kris is that Sunny doesn't use they/them pronouns, but they are still their own character that differs from us. The only problem is that the line blurs a little bit in Omori because the separation between player and in-game character isn't so much of a theme that the game focuses on all that much. But throughout the entire fandom, you never see Sunny get considered a self-insert, but more as his own character. So why isn't that the same for Kris? Is it because they go by non-binary pronouns and therefore people feel like it's easier to attach themselves to them because of the ambiguity? Because I feel like that would lead to a lot of misgendering of Kris that quite frankly just isn't necessary. Oh, that does happen quite a lot, doesn't it? There are definitely other ways we can prove that Kris is their own person and not a representation of you, the player, such as the entirety of the Noelle house scene in Chapter 4, the beginning of the fucking game, the naming sequence, and need I go on? But that's only half the point I want to make with this video. If you're not Kris, if you do not represent the personality or character of Kris, then why does their life matter? Why should you connect with their family, friends, world, or any of it? If the goal of the game is to stop the roaring, seal the fountains, and defeat the night, then everything else is just unnecessary, right? Have you guys ever even played a video game before? There are several reasons to play video games, but one that remains constant is the wish to be immersed. It's why we push for more realistic graphics, voice acting, and even the concept of self-inserts as a whole, to immerse ourselves in the world that we are playing. Actions that we can believe are realistic further cement that idea because it is logical to us. Susie betraying the party to join Lancer makes sense because of her unwillingness to participate and playing along with the fun gang. We can further believe in the world because the rules and actions of it follow our logic. So when the game pushes back on our preconditioned idea that a silent protagonist means self-insert by constantly showing us that Kris will make their own decisions, we no longer take on the role of the controller, but more so as a spectator a lot of the time. Sure, we do get to control Kris, but in terms of character relations, we're just watching. And yeah, we can make small decisions in those moments, but outside of a few select scenarios, the outcomes largely don't change. My point is, when we lose the ability to immerse ourselves by not being able to place pieces of us as the main character, we have to do it differently. And that might be just as simple as caring about the world and characters around us. You do this regardless of a self-insert, whether or not you even notice it. But when you're put in a position where your presence isn't the most important, it becomes even clearer. Just because you aren't Kris doesn't mean their life events are meaningless. They are their own character that should be cared about like every other character. Yeah, they have secrets that we don't quite understand, but so did Undyne. She knew about the bunker and clearly had some opinion on it, yet we still choose to press on to save her. Even the idea of stopping the night, why are we fighting them? Why are we preventing the roaring? Why do we seal the dark fountains? Sure, we were told to, but after the first few, if you have no personal motivation or care for the world, you get bored as hell and just quit. But for those who played through all the way up to Chapter 4, you pressed onward. Sure, as far as you know, it's a world-ending event, but if you don't care about the world, at the end of the day, why does it really matter? Well, the short answer is, you do care about the world. If you're playing through to finish the goal, you've immersed yourself enough to want to stop the night because of what they're doing is not good. I don't know how else to put that without sounding really reductive. But if you've immersed yourself enough to want to follow through with the goal of besting the night, then what's stopping you from taking time to smell the roses and learn more about the light world? Of course, you don't have to, but it's like reading a book specifically only to flip from page 1 to page 500 all the way up to page 1000, with no regard for the other 997 pages. You might be missing a lot of character growth and world building in those skipped sections, only because you were interested in the overall plot of the story. Point being, plots shouldn't be basic A to B quests. There should be plenty of depth in between those key markers. And the light world is just that. Hell, even then, it has its own massive overarching narrative that coincides and sometimes interacts with the dark world. Just because it's more down to earth doesn't mean it's less interesting. You just have to be willing to let yourself be immersed in the story. And if you refuse, that's fine too, but snarky comments that act like they're making a good point when it all boils down to you not being able to care enough about the world if you can't directly attach yourself as a person in it to cover up transphobia isn't exactly the best look either. So yeah, that's my point. I definitely could go on a longer rant about the ins and outs of Kris being their own character and why the light and dark world stories still matter regardless, but quite frankly, this video would triple in length if I went over everything. I think I made my point while trying to keep it as understandable as possible, but if I got a little incomprehensible there for a second, sorry. Thank you all for watching, and cheers to the 2 weeks of uploads. I'm curious to see how far I can get this, especially since I have a few more videos planned for next week. That's all for today. Bye bye for now.